MLA formatting doesn't really have to be difficult. Let's take a look at how to build an in-text citation for lines of poetry from a literary anthology. So here's an example of how you should cite lines of poetry from an anthology like the one we're using in our class. Elizabeth Bishop describes the broken lines in the fish's mouth as looking like metals with their ribbons frayed and wavering. This example outlines how to do an in-text citation that uses a nice smooth signal phrase that names the author and then moves into multiple lines of poetry and includes the line numbers in the in-text citation. So here's the signal phrase. Elizabeth Bishop describes the broken lines in the fish's mouth as looking. That lets the reader know that there's some kind of a quote coming. I've given the author's name here, and I have some kind of a phrase that sort of sets up the lines coming. Next, I quote lines of poetry, and notice that I have more than one line of poetry here. That's why I put the slash in the middle. If it was just one line, I wouldn't have to use the slash, but since it's more than one line, I've got to break it up exactly as it's broken up on the page. You don't want to paraphrase poetry. You want to quote it exactly, so you put the lines you're borrowing in quotation marks, and then in the parenthetical citation, include the line numbers that you're citing, and end it with a period. Here's another way that you might do it. You could just lead into the quote without naming the author. The broken lines in the fish's mouth look, quote, like metals with their ribbons frayed and wavering. And in the citation, you could then include the last name and line numbers that you cited, and remember to close it off with a period at the very end. The long and short of it here is that you've got to tell me the poet's name and the line numbers. That's really it. Now, anytime you cite something, you've got to include a works cited entry at the end of your paper. Here's an MLA works cited entry for a text, a work of literature found in an anthology. Notice what I've done here. I've given you the poet's name, the title of the poem, the title of your anthology, all of the editors, followed by the publisher, the year, and the page numbers that the poem appears on. This might sound a little bit confusing, and there's no reason you have to go it alone. Just go to the OWL at Purdue, click on MLA Works Cited page, and this is a book because it's an anthology, and scroll down until you see the type of book you're working on. For our textbook, we'll be using a work in an anthology, a reference, or else a collection, because it is an anthology. And here you have the example that I used, and a couple of other examples that you can emulate. I hope this helps. There's no reason that MLA has to be that difficult. It really breaks down to giving the last name and line number and then building an in-text citation at the end. Remember, you have Night Cite to help, and I've linked it on this page. Don't use that as your ultimate go-to. Just use it as a resource to help.